Cape Town's booming Airbnb market is making waves, with the city now hosting more listings than Sydney and San Francisco combined. According to data from Airbnb, the mother city boasts around 23,564 active listings, sparking a debate over its impact on housing affordability. As a result, the mayor of Barcelona, Joan Colbini, has recently announced that short-term rentals such as Airbnb will be banned from the end of 2028 to tackle what he describes as Barcelona's biggest problem, the housing crisis. For more on this, let's now bring in property broker Ash Muller, joining us live from Cape Town. Ash, a very good morning to you and a happy Women's Day to you. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. So what is driving this uptake of Airbnb listings in Cape Town?
So I'm sure, as many people have noticed in South Africa, the amount of developments in Cape Town CBD with the micro apartment style housing and product packages for short-term rentals to investors is really booming. I mean, just last week, 243 apartments were launched in a new development on Buitengracht, and a building in the CBD was sold for 150 million, which I'm certain will be earmarked for exactly the same sort of development. And the reason being is the demand for these short-term rentals is on a crazy increase. That paired with the Cape Town, city of Cape Town, who's got a big tourism mandate where they want to double tourism by 2035.
Yeah, it is interesting though. How does Cape Town or the Western Cape fare compared to other provinces in South Africa before we look at what's happening internationally?
So I think Cape Town is somewhat of an enigma in South Africa. I mean, obviously, there's the huge migration trend where the locals are coming in droves to the winelands, to Cape Town, all over the Western Cape. And then we have also kind of branded ourselves as this international hotspot destination. And the government is really getting on board with that. They've introduced now the digital nomad visa, which is going to encourage a load of people to come live, work and play here on those short-term rentals. And so they're really encouraging this cosmopolitan style Cape Town, which is just driving influence from all over, locally and internationally.
Yeah, it is interesting also if you look, for instance, at the data that was released yesterday by StatsSA on property rentals, that if you look at the city of Joburg, eThekwini, as well as Nelson Mandela Bay, they've actually seen, when it comes to property hills, they've seen some level of regression as compared to, for instance, the city of Cape Town. If you look at the Western Cape's figures there, property hills are around 7.7. That's huge.
Yeah, it's huge. So on a South African scale, it's huge, and it's a pretty safe yield when it comes to these investors that are investing in these short-term Airbnb style lets. And I think the appeal comes when, you get offered, say, a few apartments in one of these developments that are fully serviced, fully managed, and it's a way for you to diversify your investment and investment portfolio and get a few assets that are not stocks or, Bitcoin or whatever your investment style is.
Yeah. Could this at all also be linked to, I guess some people would say perception, but then also the experience of service delivery in a city of Cape Town, in more affluent areas that are tourist attractions, compared to service delivery in eThekwini, which has had the presidential committee intervene to try and stabilize service delivery and improve service delivery in a metro like eThekwini, which had also been a tourist hub?
Absolutely. I mean, people and money, capital, they all fluctuate where things work and are well run. And Cape Town certainly is the most well-run province if you want to talk about service delivery and infrastructure. The landlords, they've even implemented their own CIDs, which is, funded by tenants and landlords and residents of the city, over and above City of Cape Town municipalities work. And they work together to keep the streets clean, to keep things functioning, potholes fixed within, a matter of hours. And that certainly makes a difference on the surrounding of your investment and why you would want to invest in Cape Town.
Yeah. And then, of course, comes this issue around the level of how much property would cost in Cape Town versus other cities in the country. which also then pushes other people out of the market, specifically now when we focus on the rental market and the concerns that have been raised there. But is banning Airbnb really the answer?
So no, and it's a catch-22 because both need to work together. In South Africa, we have a huge housing issue, a huge affordability issue. People can't afford to stay and pay these rentals in the cities. But that being said, we need the Airbnbs. Our hotels are at over 85% occupancy. They are doing incredibly well, and there is a place for this Airbnb business to come inside of Cape Town and really, fill a market need. And so they really need to, come together, and it's a bit of a bizarre happy medium you have to find to help the locals as well as our international tourism, which we need so badly as well.
Then what is the answer to balance the two? And here's the other thing about it. We know, of course, about the apartheid spatial planning and the impact that has had when it comes to the workforce that you require and how far that workforce would stay to move from home to the place of work. They can't live in the city because it is too expensive. So how do you balance the two?
Yeah, that's a good question. And sometimes I think, if you look at, say, New York, which, Cape Town has probably a third the amount of Airbnb listings when compared to New York. And they've implemented a ton of regulation. In fact, you're not allowed to have any short-term rentals less than 30 days. And that's not even curbing the issue of Airbnbs and people being priced out of Manhattan. So I don't really know what your answer is to this happy medium, to, the amount of demand for the amount of local residents that want to stay in the city and can't afford it versus, these premium short-term dates that, service the tourism market. And I suppose it would be up to, City of Cape Town, which is not doing such a bad job on their designated land for, social housing. It's a slow process, but it is coming online slowly but surely.
Yeah, and that social housing, because if the social housing is also in the city centre, we know that supply and demand also affects the price of property. Is there a way to ring-fence social housing to say that when it comes to social housing, that property will not be affected by supply and demand?
No, because, it's the City of Cape Town it's their responsibility to designate the land and to make sure these projects get off the ground. The developers developing these micro apartment short-term rentals, they're running a business and they've got to make money. So yes, the City of Cape Town should be actually, there should be regulation a bit more to help that happy medium of, getting affordable housing into developments. But I do think that the core focus here should be on City of Cape Town to make sure that these projects get off the ground in the right areas and at the right prices.
Mm-hmm. You referenced New York City a bit earlier on. They introduced what they call Local Law 18 that requires hosts to register with the city, be present in the residence while hosting and host at most 2 travelers. Has this worked? Is it known whether any of these regulations that have been implemented in different cities across the world have actually yielded the results to ensure that you still have affordable rentals open to locals?
I think it's a solution, like a working solution. New York's implemented it, and there's always a loophole and a way to do things. The fact that Airbnb is designed around residences, they're not exactly paying the commercial rates and taxes that a normal business would. So anyone can jump into Airbnb quite quickly when compared to your standard landlords who are, going through a thorough kind of FICA process and, a lot of regulations because they are commercial landlords. And I think in the case of New York, where you've got this, cosmopolitan city that everybody's coming to, people are going to find a way to make sure that they, can let their Airbnbs out and make an income.
Yeah. I wonder then the conversation also that should be happening between, let's say, for instance, Tourism SA or even the Department of Tourism around how do we find a solution for affordable rental, while at the same time acknowledging that you have all of these tech companies and these innovations that are coming through, that the country should not be left behind.
Absolutely. And I think it starts with chatting to people. And that's kind of why I love my Twitter page is the amount of voices in such a small space that you can chat to. I think it's all about the conversations. I think, if City of Cape Town wants to know where and how to do things, people, I want to say the world's not short of money when it comes to investing in things and helping uplift communities. But what we need is more people to take part in the conversation, the relevant people. It's no good people at the top just decide where people are going to live and how we're going to do it. You need to really involve as many people as possible in this conversation to make it work effectively and sustainably.
Thank you so much for your time. Ash Muller is a property broker based in Cape Town. Really appreciate your time. I wonder what this means then for the property market. And again, as we said during that conversation, how do you ensure that the country, South Africa, doesn't get left behind because of all of the tech innovation that is coming through, but also pushing some people out of the rental market?